bigotry, not racism.
Right.
Or yeah.
Doug's racism actually led him to have a black family.
Yeah. It's because I'm racist is the reason why I married I didn't want a white woman who looks like my sisters. I purposely sought out mocha coffee.
So your fear of immigration is not to do with racism, it's to do with not following the law and stuff like that, and lawlessness and all
you
that.
had a fear.
Yeah, thank you, Addison. I was just thinking that. Where did I say it? But my concern is, okay, ask your question again.
So your main fear of immigration is the law and like uncontrolled immigration, and like not sustainable for the economy. It's not to do with like their culture or their language or skin color.
Yeah, I think what you said about law is spot on, that a country should have laws, and the reason why these laws need to be there is because you don't want, let's say, a serial killer from Russia fleeing his country and coming to the United States unchecked. You want to know who these people are that are coming in, who are the criminals, who are not, who are going to be the blessings to society and who are not.
I like your use of the word fear there, Sean. I thought it was appropriate.
I mean, it's understandable. I mean, in a future world, let's say in a utopian, left-leaning future world, the world will be more globalized, and there'll be probably one world government. That's what the communists wanted before.
They've been saying that since the 80s and 70s. It's the same like with climate change. Sorry, I shouldn't have brought that up. But yeah, I have a friend, a good friend.
Since the 60s. Come on, Star Trek was a thing.
Yeah, that's true.
It's guys like Sean bring out the best in you, Doug.
I have a good friend named, you can even look him up. His name is, Sean, you'd love this. His name is Carl Tykrib, and he's an expert on one world governments. He's been doing this for like 30 years. And he's been preaching the doomsday of the one world government's going to come and take over the world, and all you Christians are going to go bye-bye. He's a Christian. And he's been wrong every single decade.
Yeah, so it's mainly to do with his Bible, and he thinks that if there's a one world government, the end times happens or something. I don't know.
Yeah, exactly.
Revelations.
Yep.
But the lefties are more pro one world government. I think the communists were trying to do that before.
Yeah, Nathan's that way. Like Nathan wants a one world government because he thinks the problems with the world is you got rich nations and poor nations.
Actually,
and the reason why we have conflict.
A one world government, Doug, is because in the Halo universe, humanity has the United Nations Space Command, which rules over, and I just think that would be better.
Okay, I just don't think it will ever happen because I think we evolved to have differences, and these differences help for our survival. And
well, I think,
and number two, I think that the differences in different countries actually help as an experimental test, a control group of what, let's say, economic systems work the best, what social systems work the best. And if you have this one world government, it becomes very tough to actually experiment with what might be better for mankind.
Nathan, to your point, though, the only way we're going to get to the Halo universe is if we have a mutual enemy, which is not on the actual planet, right? Then we can actually like put our differences aside.
Yeah, that's why we need to all convert to Islam.
No, that's why we support Elon Musk.
Well, yeah, that as well. Well, he's solving the breeding problem all on his own, or whatever that he says.
Yeah, but
no, I think that you could have. Couldn't you be a federalist though, Doug? Couldn't you be? And like I'd say I'm a one world government federalist probably, and so I'd actually want local city states really in towns to have a lot of power and funding, and like local mayors to have as much power as possible. Really.
Yeah, it all depends. Like who controls the laws that affect people directly? Is it going to be this one world government or these federalist city people?
A little bit of both.
Yeah, I think since cultures are so different, it's going to be really tough to have a one world government.
Well, we're going to have to actually.
Seems to work where?
Seems to work in
Sorry.
Starship Troopers, you know. So
Like it's not even
But-
working in Europe with the euro.
Doug, how about this?
European
What is the biggest, what's your biggest problem with immigration at the south border? Or what's your biggest problem with the US South border? How about that?
That we don't know who's coming in, and that the asylum seekers get to stay in the United States, and we don't know where they go, who they are. 70% of asylum seekers are rejected, and so if you know this going in, then you actually don't have an incentive to go to your court hearing date, because there's a 70% chance you'll be declined. Unless you have a really strong case and you're confident, then you'll go. But the people who are not confident about their case for asylum, they're not going to go to their court case,
Well, I
which
think
means
a
they
part-
shouldn't actually be here in the first place for that reason.
Well, so I think a lot of them will get pulled over without a license so that they can have a court case, and then they're actually in the system, and it benefits them to be in the system better. Look, the US isn't trying to kick out anybody in a real sense, right? Like if we had a serious, how many illegals do you think are in the country at the moment?
20 to
10
30
million.
million. 20 to 30 is
So-
my guess.
Sure. How many of those illegals do you think are actually holding down jobs and sending money back to their families in Mexico?
Very few. Because I think most
So-
illegals, at least in the last 10 years, are not Mexican.
Okay. How about just the general, like, so without, I just use Mexican because I'm familiar with it, just because working in restaurants,
Because
right?
you're
Like
racist.
Mexicans, El Salvador, Honduras, lots of these guys working like
We
these
don't
industries that
know
might-
we don't know where they're from because we don't know.
Okay, well, how many? So let's just take.
There's
immigrants
probably a
as
lot
whole.
of European, Asian,
Okay,
Russian.
out of the, let's say it's 20 or 30. Let's just 20 million, right? Like out of these 20 million, how many of these do you think are here to make a better life for themselves and are actually working and supporting the American economy?
I would say probably half.
I disagree. I think it's much more than half. I would put it.
But guess
I
what?
think 70
I'm
to
wrong
80.
and you're wrong because we don't know.
Sure.
I mean, we could be lucky and right.
Sure, but I think it's
Wouldn't it be good to
way-
know?
But this is absolutely. But the problem is, Doug, is I don't think America wants to know because they like the benefits of two things. One, they love the benefits of having people that are paying into this tax system that they'll never have to pay back. They love the Social
Is
Security.
it
that
fair
they'll
for
never
someone to
have
come
pay back.
in and work and not get Social Security from their?
It doesn't matter because it's not based on fairness. It's so you're going to lobby for the Mexican. I'm going to use Mexican as
No,
the
no.
example 'cause it's
I'm making a point for your
easy.
side.
What I'm saying is they don't care about getting that Social Security back because they're making more than they could where they were, and they're sending money home.
Do you
right?
believe
So
the United States of America has an obligation to help every person in the world?
So let me make 2 points first.
Yes.
And then
Okay, Nathan
Let
says
me make-
yes. What do you say, Sean?
hold
you-
on. Let me make this. Before you derail it, let me make 2 points. Right. So
Okay.
one, I think the majority of the legals in this country are supporting the American economy. And the second point on that is that our government wants nothing to do with sending them all back because they pay into the economy, and they're just using this idea of like we need to have better border control as a political, the same reason that like late term abortion, trans people, any of these things, they just used it as one of their, I forget what it's called, but to stir up the American people for votes, right? Because if they wanted them gone out of the country when they got arrested, they'd send them over the border, or they literally like rally them up. It's not like we don't know where the majority.
Did you hear the New York mayor a couple months ago saying that, basically pleading to the southern states, don't send us any more immigrants, and actually telling immigrants themselves, don't come here, we're maxed out. If we get any more, I mean, did you hear the New York mayor say that?
No, I didn't.
He said that. You can look it up. You can fact check me. Now, if what you said, that immigrants help support the economy, if 20 million is good for the economy of the United States, wouldn't you say 40 is even better? 80's even
So-
better. How about
so
100 million?
No, so at a certain point, obviously, I think, but
Okay,
in
what's
my
that
world,
point?
I don't know, but in my world, here's the thing. You've got Americans that don't take these jobs because they don't pay enough. They don't give them the lunch break. They don't give them the smoke break. And the Mexican guy will come in and he'll work for less than the American guy. He'll take less breaks. I've experienced this cooking for 20 some years, right? The reason we hire illegal immigrants in business is because they want the job. The American doesn't. The American wants to sit out back, smoke his 2 cigarettes an hour. Fucking, he wants lunch. He wants to get paid more than this. And ultimately, he's just going to go take the check. A lot of this goes on.
Yeah, but you can all do. But Sean, you can do all that legally.
No. But why would they do it legally if they can take in all this money and not give it back? Why pay a bunch of people Social Security out at some time, give them back the taxes system that they pay into? Because make no mistake,
No, I agree with you that people
cash.
I agree with you that people do illegal things to make more money. But I'm saying,
No, I'm saying the government does. The government wants that money without having to give it
is
back.
that good or bad?
Well, I think it's bad, but the government has
Yes,
no,
you're
our
on my
US
side.
government-
It's bad.
But I support them being here because guess what? They do a better job than the Americans
Sean,
that they're taking the jobs
You
from.
just said you agree with me that it's bad for people to come here illegally.
No, I never said that. I said it's bad for the United States government to take their money and never get it back. Why not just make them legal?
Yeah, that's
why not
illegal.
make them legal? No, I'm saying why doesn't the United States
Yes,
government
let's make
just-
them legal. I agree
right,
with
the
you.
point is
Now,
because
how do we
they
do
don't-
that?
They have no interest in making them legal, Doug, because they're supporting the system.
How do
They're
we
paying
make immigrants legal, Sean?
Doug, there's no interest. We're never
Just by
going to solve
fiat?
this problem.
Can you answer my
No.
question? How do you make immigrants legal?
So it's a much bigger conversation than I'm equipped to
Yeah,
have.
yeah.
Or no. The reason that I'm saying this, Doug, is because it doesn't matter ultimately, because the United States government doesn't have any dog in that fight. They want to keep the illegals here paying money out and not getting.
And is
it
that
back,
good or
right?
bad?
Because I think it's bad on the United States government.
agree.
Part, but I support the illegals being here because guess what? That's who mows the lawns. That's who's in the chicken factories. That's who's working construction. That's
What would you
who's
rather
literally
have?
feeding you every time you go to Applebee's.
What would you rather have? The
That's
illegals
who's
being here
cooking your
illegally or
dinner.
the illegals being here legally? Sorry, I should say it as a form of immigrants. What would you rather have? Immigrants being here illegally or immigrants being here legally? What would you rather have?
Ultimately legally, so that they get, well, it doesn't matter because look, we don't get any
It
benefits.
doesn't, whether
What are the
someone's legal or
benefits?
not doesn't matter.
What are the benefits? What are the benefits for a person being here? So as say the Mexican that works in the restaurant,
They're not breaking the
making-
law. That's the
hold on,
benefit.
making $20 an hour, right? What benefit does it give him if he has to be here legally? What benefits does he get? He doesn't get health
can
care.
collect
He
Social
doesn't have
Security.
Medicare now. What's that?
If we had a one world government, this problem would be solved.
Right.
One benefit is he can
Yeah, you
collect
have
Social
one-
Security when he gets older.
Can he though? Are we going to have Social Security when we
Oh,
when we
come
get
on.
older? Right. So
If
I
you
don't-
want to go
I
that
don't-
argument that it's not going to be there, that's a completely
No,
different
I-
argument.
I'm not saying that. I'm just saying how much of that's going to be left. That's not a guaranteed
When it
thing.
comes
So I
down to
don't
it,
think
Sean,
it's.
you and I are not different.
I'm not saying that we're different, Doug. What I'm saying is I'm okay with the illegals being here because the majority of
What
them
do you
are
mean
not
by
coming
I'm
over.
okay with?
I just gave you all the reasons, right? Because
Are
they
you okay
literally-
with a murderer fleeing another country and coming into this country? Are you okay with that immigrant?
Of course, I would rather them not be here, but how are we going to vet
Okay.
every person that comes in here?
How
do you know-
How do
Hold
we
on.
vet?
How do you-
We
how do you
have
know
them
if
come
they've
through an
committed a
orderly
crime?
system, a legal orderly system through the port of entry. That's
Right,
how.
but murder-
that's how I was
murderers-
vetted. I
Murderers
was
are still
the FBI and
murder-
had background checked me.
Murderers
I
will-
had to get my fingerprints, my eye scanned. I had to be vaccinated twice. I had to go through all these hoops.
Oh, I bet you
legally
hated that,
and
didn't you?
orderly, and I was
You
willing
had
to do it
this-
because I love this country.
Wait a minute. Hold on. Wait, you let them vaccinate you?
Yes,
So is it?
I'm not
Man.
against vaccinations.
Yeah, but
what's
aren't
cool?
you against government
Just one.
mandated vaccinations?
Are you now changing the topic?
No. I don't mean to, because
Have
I'm
you-
always
have-
going to support.
Have you conceded
no, I'm
the
sorry.
topic to me?
No, I'm saying that I think.
Let me
legal-
ask
I
you
think-
again, Sean.
All
A
right.
murderer is fleeing their country comes into the United States. Are you for that or against that?
Against.
Of course you are. Now,
Do you
how do
think?
we
Hold
stop
on.
that?
Do you think?
Sean, how do we stop that from happening?
Let me ask you one question. Do you think that if we were able to put a system in place that allows less fortunate people to come over and be good parts of the economy, productive Americans, right? Do you think that
Mhm.
we're still not going to have murderers and rapists and drug dealers come through? Do you think that's going to solve the problems?
Let me answer the question very reasonably. You're not going to eliminate 100%, but you're still going to be way better off if you screen people rather than just let anybody in without checking. Is
Sure.
that not reasonable?
I think that is reasonable. Why do you think
Okay.
that the United States government doesn't seem to have any interest in actually fixing the problem that they just get on TV every day and rant about, right? Like, why do we not do
Okay,
anything?
so are we agreed now on immigration, and now we're just talking about why it's not being changed?
So what I'm going to say is this: I am for the illegal immigrants in this country.
Wait a minute. Okay, you're for illegal immigrants in this country, but you're not for the ones that are murderers, right?
Well, I can't say I'm for 100% of them, Doug, just like I'm not for 100% of legal immigrants, right?
Okay, what
Like, I'd
percentage are
much
you
rather,
for
hold
then?
on. I'd much rather not have you here voting for the fucking right. I'd much rather have them deny you go back to Canada, so that, right, we don't need to add to
Whoa.
like. So that's what I'm saying, right? Like,
Whoa,
so sure,
you're
I'm
not
never
for
gonna
diversity of a thought and opinion? Are you against diversity and inclusion?
Oh man, you know exactly what
I've been
I
doing
mean.
this too long, Sean.
I know, but we're playing a game now, and not actually having
You sound
the
like
real
a
conversation.
closed-minded, dogmatic, anti-progressive person who says, I'd rather not have opinions like yours voting. I'm against diversity of thoughts and opinions politically. That's what you sound like.
Well, one, it was a joke, but two, what I'm saying is I'm never
Are you
gonna
joking?
hold on, Doug. I'm never going to be 100% for all the illegals here, because obviously there's going to be a bad
Okay,
portion.
okay, I hear you.
As well as, hold on, there's also going to be a bad portion of legal immigrants in the U.S., which I'm neither. So I can't support either position 100%.
Okay, this is a
not
great moral
perfect
dilemma.
world.
This is a great moral dilemma. Would you be for, let's say I had 10 immigrants lined up at the border and not through a port of entry. I told you one's a murderer. This is a thought experiment. We know one's a murderer, a serial murderer. 9 are great, great people. Do you let all 10 in or not?
Wait, into the current state of I don't know. I mean, to
I
be
say
honest with you,
no.
I don't know.
I say no. What do you say?
I don't know. Maybe the correct position is to say no, but I don't know how I feel about that.
I'm causing cognitive dissonance in your brain right now because of your feel sorry for ism for the 9 is now in conflict with the 1.
It's not. No. It's not. Listen, it doesn't come from feel sorry for ism.
Yes, it does.
Hold on. What outweighs? So what does this outweigh? So if we have 9 citizens
nine productive citizens.
Hold on. Not right. So right now in America, I think the 9 productive citizens would outweigh the murderer trying to get out of whatever it is, because I think.
So is your answer you would let them in?
More productive people. That's the dilemma, or the dissonance.
Can you answer my question? We got 10 immigrants at the border, not at the port of entry.
Know. I'm not sure, but the dissonance or the dilemma you're causing is because I think that those 9 people may outweigh
you
the
said
one
not
murderer
sure.
trying to hide under the radar. Yeah.
You said not sure. This is a thought experiment. Yeah. This is not real life. This is just to see, like Addison would love this because this is a street epistemology type question. What if I told you it was 1 million immigrants at the border, 999,999 are law-abiding citizens. They'll be great for the United States, but 1 is a serial killer. Do you let in that million?
Yes.
Yeah, I would say yes.
There it is. So now we're down to numbers because you said I don't know for 10 to 1, but you said yes for 1,000,000 to 1. Addison loves this, right?
Okay, change my mind.
But Doug, so how do you answer that question?
It might be another reason though. Like it might not.
I say no in both cases.
because it might not just be purely numbers. It might be once you get enough numbers, it knocks it over into like another reason being valid or being likely or something like that, right? So what, like,
And
why?
can I say one?
Where's the cutoff point? Why is it tipping over from no on this number to yes on another number? It's the key thing.
Well, for me, Addison, the reason that I've often said, God, I said this in my 20s, that we should literally be like taking a good portion of the useless Americans and trading them at the border for people that wanted to work. Because when I was in restaurants coming up, and
you sound like
we
a
were-
right-wing conservative.
so Doug, like it's look, make no mistake, I've never been, the only reason I don't say I lean conservative anymore is because conservative now just means something wildly different. I used to
Who are the
also-
useless Americans you would
Hold on.
trade for immigrants?
Well, back then, when I said that, it was the constant stream of workers that we had that would literally like steal, that would just not show up to work on time or do this. But meanwhile, we've got, this Mexican dude or this Honduran kid that comes in and busts his fucking ass for the same amount of money that 20 years later now has citizenship, and it took
Sean, you don't have to
everything we
convince
can
me of
do.
this. I live in Arizona.
sorry.
I live in Arizona, and I have worked with farmers and companies that hire a lot of immigrants. You do not have to convince me that people from Central America, Mexico, South America are extremely hardworking. They're family oriented. They actually espouse and share some of the same conservative values that I value. I love a lot of them. Okay, you don't have to convince me. But
do you know the amount of Mexicans that I've met that vote for Trump? And I literally was like, this dude wants to have you shipped out of the country, but you're going to vote for him. And they've said,
I don't want them shipped out of the country. My point is
was
that the vast majority of the immigrants that I have worked with and met and worked with other companies, they come here legally, and they dislike the immigrants that come in here, just walk across the border. They don't like them. They said,
Well,
I came in, I got the proper visas, the proper paperwork. What is wrong with you doofuses?
Well, right. But
Why
Doug,
was
that's
this
the
not a problem
That's
before?
Doug,
What?
hold on one second, Sean. Doug, tough shit. Life's not fucking fair. There are people that are coming in legitimately like yourself, and there are people that are coming in illegally, and both of them are being productive people. There are also people coming in legally that are not.
What would you rather have, a
There are also
productive
people-
person who comes in legally or a productive person who comes in illegally?
Either. Like, to me, that doesn't.
Oh,
mean
come on. If we rewind the tape, I think you said something different.
No,
I'll
Doug,
ask
it's
my
not a
question
big-
again.
look,
Would you rather have a productive person come in legally or illegally?
Oh, yeah. For me, like off the top of my head, that doesn't matter. But sure, legally. But the problem
It
is,
doesn't
it goes
matter if
back
someone
to.
comes in legally or illegally.
Well, Doug, look, it goes back to this. Do you think that our government? Hold on. Do you think the United States?
Nathan, do you see what's happening here? This is what feel sorry forism does. It causes
God
your brain
damn
not to
it.
think objectively.
No. Hold on. You. Let's get one thing straight. It's not about feel sorry forism or whatever the fuck you mean by that.
Then what is it then?
The-
Why are you malfunctioning?
So I don't think the United States government gives a shit. I don't think the people that live next door to me really care whether the illegals, they don't want the people to be here legally. All they care about is what's being spun to them is the narrative that illegals are coming in and by the caravan to rape, pillage, and murder, when that's not actually the case. And you say half, I say more than half, right? But regardless, the government spins it that every person that's crossing that border is bringing in drugs. They're coming here to do X, Y, and Z. Do you think that our government really wants to do anything on the border, or it's just political? It's politically driven to get
Some
votes?
yes, some no. Depends who you're talking about.
Well, I'm talking about
It's
mainly
maybe because the U.S. has fucked up the South American economy so hard that they're all like poor now, so they have to go to North America. That could be one reason, or it could be their socialist crazy ideas in South America that's fucked up the economy, and they've overpopulation and destroying the environment, and now they have to go to North America because they have no jobs. Or it could be both, or something like that. I think there's going to be more immigration in the future because of climate change and the economy. So all the rich countries are just going to have to accept there's going to be more immigration because of these problems. And the racist ones just have to.
Well, that gets into another
Deal with it.
topic, but I do generally agree with you that the United States has done damage to other countries that they haven't recovered from. But I still think it's extremely reasonable to say that we rather have immigrants come in legally rather than illegally. I think that's so extremely reasonable, and it's also
It's fair
reasonable,
enough.
and it's so reasonable to say that in order to have a sovereign nation, you do need borders and you need to control them, and you do not just. And I think even if we have no obligation to save the world. Any country has no obligation to save the world. Now,
Well, you're trying to destroy it as well.
Is it a nice thing to help poor people who want to come in? Yes, but there's no obligation for the country of the United States to take in 20 million poor people.
Now, this isn't a conservative point, Doug. This is an isolationist point.
Doug,
Yeah.
do you think Biden built it? I don't know how much he said, but like recently there's been like talk that he's building like some of the border wall. Do you think he did that out of he actually thinks it's going to keep people out of the US or just to get votes?
Who Biden?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
You're asking me what is Biden's motivation for completing some of the wall?
Yep.
I would say it'd be very reasonable to say both.
Yeah, I disagree. I think it's just for votes. I think the only reason Trump said he's going to build a wall is for votes because I don't think that's a reasonable.
You're saying Trump or Biden?
I don't. Any of them. I don't think a wall is reasonable. I don't know. Does anyone here think that like us, the United States, building
Reasonable
a wall?
for what? Reasonable for what?
How much of that? Like how much of the border could we cover with a fucking wall? Do you think it would stop? Do you think a wall? Does anybody here think a wall would do much at all to stop immigration from the southern border?
I'm going to do an essay thing that Peter Boghossian did recently.
Okay, before that,
Predict
before
my
essay,
answer.
Can I
Predict my answer.
Can I? Jesus Christ!
You just
Yeah,
asked
go
me a
ahead.
question. You just
Well,
asked me
yeah,
a question, right? I'm
Right, why
asking
can't you
you to
just
predict
answer
my
it?
answer. I want to see if your brain can actually predict my answer.
Oh, I mean, I think we would all agree that the wall's not going to do very much at all to keep the southern border, to keep people out of the southern border.
Okay, have you listened to any border crossing guards on this topic? Probably
That
not.
the walls keep them out.
A border
Doug,
crossing
we
guard,
can't-
and
we can't
Nathan
cover-
knows this because he's listened to the same things I've listened to. What a border crossing guard will tell you is, of course not, a wall's not going to keep everybody out. But what it does do is it slows them down so that the border patrol people can actually get there in time and deal with the situation. It is a deterrent. It is a way, just like you cannot stop all murder by having capital punishment, but it can act as a deterrent.
Right, that's what I said. But I think that deterrent is very, very small. I think our money would be better spent elsewhere, and maybe that's on like if we truly cared about border security. But I don't think the United States cares about border security. It's politically motivated. That's my overall.
If it's politically motivated, that means people care.
Right, correct. But the government doesn't seem to.
So you were wrong.
They don't. What do you mean? My point is the government doesn't care. They just care about the votes.
Depends what you mean by government.
God, do you
you're
think
talking about federal or talking federal or
Any-
state? Like
I don't.
Texas,
any, Doug,
Arizona, even New York now cares.
I think the overarching opinion of our government is just during election time, we're going to like. It's gotten insane to me, right? Because we don't care about the real issues. Because sure, there's that is an.
So you
issue.
say we should care?
Immigration is an issue, right? If the government cared, it wouldn't just be like we need to stop all.
Do you think the government
border
should
crossings,
care?
right? Of course, I think the government should care. That's my.
So
my
immigration is
general
one of
point in all
your.
of this.
So immigration is one of your top issues.
No, it's not. No, I mean, no. I wouldn't say immigration is one of my top
So would
issues
you be
because I
pro
just
open border? Would you allow open? Would you be like pro open border, like not have a border?
Good
Would
question.
you be that
no,
extreme?
no, Sean, not that extreme. No, I mean, I think we might as well have an open border at this point. But no, I do believe that we need to try our best and curtail some of it just for anyway.
Some
this
of it or
is-
all of it?
So look, there's a significant amount of people that cross our border that get injured, they get hurt, they get killed because of the way that they cross the border, right?
Yes.
Even like right. And so there, but these are little like details to me that I don't really like. If you and I, if the United States actually cared about it, then those would be the points that they would be talking about. But I don't think the U.S. cares about this because
No,
all
there
they
are
talk
people
about,
talking about it. A lot of government people are talking about it.
more than not. What do you think the majority? In my
I don't know the numbers, but there's a
opinion-
lot of government
in my
people
opinion-
talking about exactly what you're talking about. There's actually innocent people being killed by the cartel, being injured, being raped. If we had
the
an
Mexican
orderly system,
police, the Mexican police.
I don't know. If we had an orderly system and a deterrent
I've
saying,
had-
hey, if you come to the border, that doesn't mean you're getting across. If we had an orderly system and basically like a wall of army guys saying nobody's crossing here. I don't care who you are. You're not crossing unless it's through a port of entry.
So,
Okay, what
so-
happens
You
in
would
a climate
actually
change
save
situation?
lives and you prevent rapes.
No,
But
we
don't you
shouldn't
think
do-
it's
We should
indicative?
let the free market solve the problem. If it's a real problem, then the capitalists will come up with a solution.
A free market only makes sense in a sovereign nation. I mean, you got to have sovereign nations like to
No,
have
you
that
don't.
system
No,
in
you
place.
don't. You don't need. If you really were capitalist, you would like to, as many immigrants as you want, as many humans.
Yeah, I've
If you're a
derailed
real
it.
capitalist, you would have globalization, one currency. No,
Okay.
well, to be fair, actually, the capitalists
Okay.
want different currencies.
Yeah, you could make that argument, but then you would say, okay, let anybody who wants to come in, but then they get no social benefits. They have to earn it.
Doug, we don't have any fucking social benefits for half of us, much less the illegals that are coming through. What are you talking about?
What am I
social
talking about?
benefits?
I'm talking about Yuma, Arizona, where there are so many immigrants going across that the hospital beds are full.
Well, right, but what social benefits are they getting? A bed?
Medical care.
All right. Anyway,
What's the? You don't
Well,
think that's a
because
social
how-
benefit?
right? What medical care are you talking about? So the United States doesn't have a universal health care, right? So they're going to get the same medical attention that I'm going to get, and that's if they
No,
end
but
up
there's
in the
only so
hospital,
much.
They're going to.
In Yuma, Arizona, there's only one hospital. And there's only so and so many beds.
Why is
Yuma's
it about
right-
like you? Why is it about this one small little place? This sounds like
Because
something
this
you
is
heard
indicative
on,
of many southern border towns in the southern states. I'm just picking one. And I'm sorry if you've never heard this before, but it's the truth. The truth is that there are many immigrants coming across. A lot of them are pregnant ladies. They come across and they take up hospital beds, and American citizens who have, let's say, scheduled C-sections or whatever, they have to be postponed or whatever. They come, they have their babies in the Yuma hospital. They have no money. And so the U.S. taxpayer has to pay not only for their babies being born, but for the immigrants, the illegal immigrants. This is the truth.
Sounds like a business
I'm
opportunity.
not making this up.
It does sound like a business opportunity. Yeah, and I'm not.
And
Well
one could
versed in
say
this, so
immigration is part of the problem with inflation.
So just a legitimate question for your point of view, Doug. Like, where would you rank this problem, compared to like other problems in the US?
You got to be more specific. What other problems?
Well, what would you say are the main, like, if you were to give you a top 5 problems for like the next US government or the US election cycle, would this be in the top 5?
Yeah.
Okay, fair.
But climate change.
No.
What do you put climate change on? The conservatives.
146.
For fuck's sake.
So,
I got
So
air
Doug-
conditioning.
so Doug, how about this? What do you think the solution to the border is?
I've said it like several times. You put the National Guard on the border. And you don't let anything breathing cross.
So who's going to pay for the National Guard to sit on the border?
U.S. citizen.
And do you think that would be more expensive or less expensive than the hospital bills you're talking about?
Oh, way less. Way,
Okay.
way less.
How many National Guard do you think it would take to patrol the whole United States border?
I'm not sure. I think I looked into that once. I think you could probably you could probably have one or like teams of 2 every, I don't know how many meters, maybe could be up to a
I'm just
kilometer.
saying that's not going to be cheap.
But no, yeah, of course it's not cheap. But let me ask you, Sean.
Guess
Let
what
me
National
tell
Guard
you some
gets?
hard truths here.
No, hold on. How much does the National Guard get paid when they're made active?
I don't know, but it's way less than me.
Well, it's more than they normally make because they get active duty pay. So it's not just like, oh look,
It doesn't even have to be the National Guard. It could be the regular guard, the non-reservists.
What do you mean? The regular army?
Yeah.
Well, so what are we supposed to do with the positions? So let's say we put 200,000 soldiers on the border, right? Because that's probably, I don't know how many, but let's just throw that out there. It might be a few less. It might be a little bit more, but who's going to fill those 200,000 jobs?
Who's going to fill the 200,000?
Mexicans.
We already
Right,
have we already have army personnel.
That's correct. And those
take them out of
200,000
Germany,
people,
take them out of Japan if you have to. I don't care.
Well, that's so now
the Europeans would probably like that too. Well, not the Germans. Get rid of foreign affairs, the army,
or the Polish or Estonians or anyone along the border of Russia.
Instead of protecting the borders of other nations, why not protect ours first?
I don't know.
Does that seem reasonable?
That would have helped with World War II. That would have worked in World War II. If America didn't help us.
It worked in both cases, right?
I'm saying there's what is it? It probably is hundreds of thousands of U.S. military personnel right now on bases all around the world. I'm saying bring some of them home to protect our own borders. That's so reasonable to me.
But they're trying to keep the immigrants. They're trying to keep the peace in those foreign countries from becoming worse, and then immigrating to America more.
What do you mean those countries can't take care of themselves? Is that what you're saying?
No, because if you don't take care of them, like a nanny state, they will come to America even more. Think, Doug.
Yeah, but they'll have to fight the U.S. military to get across. Good luck. Good luck with that.
God. I mean, we're already a global
Arizona alone could take out.
Well, why don't you do that? Why don't Arizona just put state troopers all along the border or something?
That's a great question. I actually think that the federal government does not allow it. Like this.
Oh, really?
Yeah, the other day there was this news article about how the Texas governor was suing the federal government because they actually they put a barbed wire in the river. And and some federal agency went in and cut it to let the immigrants go across, and then the governor is suing the federal government, saying, "How dare you cut this barbed wire? Well, you're hurting the immigrants who are coming across."
It's a good point, actually. I hadn't thought about that.
So, Doug, why do you think that our government? So, Nathan, this goes back to the point that we were talking about earlier, right? At some point, you just have to, like, for me, you've got the government, both sides, right? Like preaching border control. We need to stop this. We need to do this, but we don't do anything about it. And at some point, after 10 years of listening to this, I simply just think, hey, it seems like they don't want to control the border because of X, Y, and Z that I think is because of the support of the U.S. economy that the illegal immigrants do, and that outweighs the nefarious bullshit that happens, which is much smaller than you think. Because when you do like the drugs and the rapes and the all this stuff, there are many more Americans that are committing crimes than the
all the racist Republicans employed all the illegal immigrants. But the Republican companies.
But Doug, why do you think that our government, both sides, either side, whatever, doesn't do more to stop the border stuff that they're all preaching is so terrible?
I disagree with the premise of your question, because I do think governors for years have been screaming to do stuff like shore up the border, the southern borders. And because they were smart enough to bus immigrants to sanctuary cities, now Democrats are starting to wake up. And so I actually think in the next, I don't know, couple election cycles, more will be done. So I'm
No, but
optimistic.
as a whole, though, dude, right? Like Trump got elected on border security and did very little, right? Like we didn't do anything in the 4 years. He built like 100 feet of wall.
What do you
Like,
mean?
why do you think?
No,
Why
he
I'm
did.
just
I mean, if you compare the number of people who've come across during Trump, now Trump
that's
had
not what I'm
COVID.
talking about. I'm talking about the actual like securities we've put in place. So if you and I were in charge, we could sit down in a room and do this for 2 weeks until we finally came upon the best way to secure the border, right? Like and deal with immigration. And then you
I don't
and
know
I
why
would go
you're
out and
asking these questions,
we would
because
put-
if people, citizens like you and me, and I am a
What are you
citizen of the
talking about?
United States.
Why am I asking these questions? Because you're preaching what
No,
politicians are always screaming about, but those same politicians don't seem to put any border securities in place. Like it
why
doesn't
aren't
seem
they
like we
doing
really
this?
give
Why
a.
aren't they doing this? Why
Well,
aren't
I
they
told
doing
you.
this? I don't know. But if you and I were to get serious and call our congressmen, then maybe they would get more serious, right?
I don't think so because I don't think they have any interest in doing it. I think they're all just literally getting you
You don't
riled
think
up so you
congressmen listen
vote
to their
for 'em.
constituents?
Fuck no. Well,
Oh,
some of them
boy.
maybe, but
You
far
are
fewer than
cynical
you
about the
think.
democratic system.
Yeah, I'm about the United States government is what I'm
But
cynical
but
about.
I don't need this argument to defend the more closed borders. But you several times you said that it's great for the economy, great for the economy. Let me challenge you on that.
Okay.
Imagine a family comes across with 4 kids, low skilled labor family. The husband's low skilled labor. Let's say that person fulfills a job that is actually needed in this country, but it pays $35,000 a year. Do you think $35,000 a year can sustain that 4 kids, husband and wife?
Yes. It depends on your lifestyle. Some people can have they can live in a shack in the middle of a rich suburb. It's all about priorities,
I agree. It depends on your lifestyle, but I'm asking Sean here. Do you think when it comes to healthcare, education, that a $35,000 per year income can sustain a family of 6?
No, I mean, no, I don't think it's any different than the Americans that are over here trying to do the same thing.
Okay,
but on
right.
their-
I agree with you. So now let me ask you this. Do you
Yep.
think that family is being subsidized by other
Well,
Americans?
So
Yes or
there's a
no?
couple of things. There's a couple things. Subsidize how? So when they go to
Through education, for example.
so here's the thing, Doug. What I mentioned earlier, not
The answer's
all
yes.
illegals. Hold on. Somewhat, yes. But what I'm going to say is this: a lot of the illegals that are working, like I said, pay into the system, right? So that family you're talking about, he may very well get a paycheck that he pays into the system. He pays
Right.
taxes. He pays Social Security. So his kids
Yep.
are going to a school that he pays for. The only difference
What?
between
What are you talking about?
wait a minute, is he not paying taxes?
If you
I
have
just
4
said-
kids, Sean, if you have 4 kids and you make $35,000 a year, you pay, I'm going to say, close to no federal income tax.
So do you think there are more Americans in that position than there are illegals?
What is this? Whataboutism all the time. What about
No.
these-
I'm sorry. It's not what about. What I'm saying is, right. So
Okay,
it's a
I'll grant you,
problem.
yes.
Well, hold on. Wait a minute, Doug. Let me finish this one little point. That problem is because he's paying into. He's no different. The only difference between him and a legal person at that point is a green card, right? Because he's
Right.
paying the same amount into the system that his next door neighbor that's an American is paying into
Right.
that system, right? Like it's the same thing. So we're talking about a much different problem in my
What's
opinion.
the maximum that person can pay into the system if they make $35,000 a year?
Doug, I have no idea.
The answer is $35,000. Assume every dollar that person makes is paid, is none of it saved. It goes in system. And I'm here to tell you that family will still need to be subsidized by other people, other American citizens. So when you say that these families are great for the system, for the economy, You could be right, but it's definitely not in the short term, probably not even in the next 20 years. You got to hope that those kids will be subsidized with a good education, that they will get better jobs, that they will end up paying more into the system that they're taking out. It costs about it costs $5,000 to $8,000 per student to educate in the public school system in the United States. If you have 4 kids, you're talking anywhere from $20,000 to $40,000. That's more money than the gross income of the father. So don't give me that this is financially, they are a burden to society.
Christ. So that's fair. What I've seen in my limited experience with illegal immigrants that I've worked with my entire life is that most of them are working as many jobs and paying into the system and coming here for a better life.
You support child labor of immigrants?
No. So their kids are born here. Their kids are going to school. Their kids are growing up. Their kids now have jobs in America. One of my friends, Jose, is going to college now, which is pretty wild to see. His mom and dad both work 2 jobs each for a long time. But anyway, that aside, so I'm seeing a very limited side, and you can argue, sure, that this one guy with his 6 kids are there, but I think the norm is they're coming over and going through the same struggles that a lot of Americans are going through.
I agree. And a lot of Americans are actually financial burdens to society. That's just a fact.
But correct. I
can agree with you that in the long term it might be beneficial, but we have to agree with the facts that it's simple math. That in the short term, it's a burden.
Okay, what do we do if we could magically just poof all of the illegals out of the country? Who takes up the slack? Who picks up the slack in the economy?
Illegals or illegals?
Illegals.
Illegals.
That's what we're talking about. Who cares about legals? Legals are Americans. Like, I don't consider you a legal immigrant. You're an American at this point, right?
Yeah.
Right.
Actually, some of those jobs would be vacant until we get the system in place where they can apply for visas and come back in.
How many? Right, but what I'm asking is how many legals? So if we have 20 million, and what's the percentage of let's meet, you and I'll meet in the middle, right? 65% of 20 million. How many is that, Doug?
What? I was reading something. 60% of what?
65% of 20 million. What's that?
13 million.
That's a lot of jobs, right? I mean, that's a lot of fucking, in Atlanta, that's a lot of Home Depots that aren't getting built, right? That's a lot of restaurants.
Collapse the economy.
I'm not saying it collapses.
Depression.
I'm not saying any of that. I'm just saying, like, that's what we're talking about, though. Who fills in those? Because what you're talking, I mean, these people aren't coming back anytime soon if we can magically poof them, right? The U.S. stands on, I mean, how many immigrants do you think the United States, like the same guy you're listening to fucking preach, like, close the borders? How many of these people do you think he wants here legally? Like, do you think magically they're going to be like, oh, now we want 75% of them back, but we want them legally? No, they don't preach that. They preach we want these fucking people out of our country that are taking our jobs, that all these Americans sitting around on their ass want.
Where do you get this from?
Living in Georgia?
Government people?
Yes.
Or just...
So here, people want closed borders so that for all kinds of different reasons. The biggest two that I hear from neighbors, friends, community is they're taking our jobs and they're bringing the nefarious elements that we all know,
hang on.
Like rape, pillage, and murder.
Imagine the most racist, horrible person that you know in Georgia, or you're in Georgia. Yep. Okay. And let's say they're in this conversation, and I was to ask them, okay, we have job needs in this industry. Do you support people being vetted, come here legally to fill that job, and it's not taking any job from an American? What would they say?
So more than likely they're going to say, well, that doesn't make any sense because they're obviously taking jobs from Americans. Otherwise, who's going to fill that role?
Unemployment is historical lows. We have needs in the United States. We have jobs that are not being fulfilled by citizens. So let's imagine the most racist Georgian, and we ask them, we have an immigrant who's applied legally using our H-1 visa system. Do you support that immigrant coming in legally? We vetted them. They've had their shots. They've had their
Yeah, no,
vaccines. They
here
have
I-
no
I
criminal history in their country
No.
of birth.
I think most of them don't want anything. I think most of them hear exactly what.
I think
No.
most Americans in the United States would
Yeah.
say we welcome them
No, I think there's a fair amount
if
of
it's
people
done
that
legally, and
I think-
and it's not taking American jobs.
Well, but right, that's the problem. Is it's not taking American jobs now because the Americans don't want these jobs. It's
Well,
not like-
exactly. So if it's not taking American jobs, and you explain that to your Georgian friend, and they come in legally, we know they're not criminals. We know they're healthy, and they're not like going to spread diseases. Take all the fears of all the bigots out of the equation. What would they have left to say?
Well, so why doesn't the government just do this then?
Now we're back to this.
No. I'm asking. That's a legitimate question. Fuck all the SC. Fuck your arguments. Fuck all this. This is the legitimate question. Is this, Doug? If you and I agree that these illegals that are here are productive and they should be here legally, why doesn't the government put processes in place to do it? Now, mind you, if you like, I don't know if she'll do it, but the neighbor that lives across the street has been an immigration lawyer for the better part of her career. And if I had to guess, she would align with you somewhat politically, at least fiscally, right? So that's what I'm saying. Why doesn't the government?
Well, I'm
put
glad we're
these-
both in agreement that something should be done.
I never said that. I said if.
Okay. I'm gonna come in and
Sorry,
put pause here because the conversation is not going to a resolution, unfortunately.
Well, it always comes back to, I think
Well, right,
Sean
but-
actually agrees with me, but then he goes, well, why are we doing it then? Why are we doing it then?
But is that not a
that's his way
legitimate
to get
concern?
out of this.
Don't rile him up again, Doug.
Sorry.
Nathan,
I gotta get some
Nathan,
water.
hold on. And honestly,